You're listening to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we talk wrestling perspectives and beliefs. Check us out on social media, including video shows on YouTube and audio on podcast platforms. Show 29 with Jeff Breese of Lake Erie College. What a great guy all around. He shares his path and the conversation with Coach Pop at NC State that catapulted him in his coaching career. He talks academic goals that he has for his wrestlers. He also discusses the dynamic of having a dad that is a college coach. Thanks for your time. All right, Coach Breese, how you doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Busy day for the storm today in Painesville. It's a lot going on today, but good we were able to carve a little bit of time out to hopefully tell some stories here.
Yeah, no, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. I know it's getting to be that hectic time of season and managing everything you got going on. So fill us in on a little bit of your path and how you ended up at Lake Erie College.
So I'll try not to do the super long version.
Okay,
but,
yeah, whatever you got.
I started out coaching right when I was coming out of NC State. I honestly thought I wanted to be a sports writer, still kind of want to be a sports writer, even though I'm like 15 years into a coaching career now. And I had a sports writing job like lined up.
Really?
Had all but taken the job. And then a graduate assistant position opened up at Seton Hill. I think even at the time it was Seton Hill College. I'm not even sure if they were Seton Hill University yet, but in Greensburg, PA. And I'm like, you know what? I really am just not ready to be done with wrestling yet. I thought I was just going to get a master's degree and move on with my life. And that's not how it played out at all. I'm still coaching. So I went from Seton Hill and ran like a high school club in the Pittsburgh area while I was at Seton Hill. With a guy named Brian Stout. Brian has some phenomenal children. That bloodline's kind of ridiculous. They're all phenomenal athletes. But ran a club with Brian Stout along the same time. And then I coached at Penn State, New Kensington, which is like at the club level, but started that program there and got it off the ground.
Wow.
And then got a D1 job. Went from there to a D1 job with Northern Illinois. I was at Northern Illinois for a couple of years when Coach Popolizio got hired at NC State. Again, an NC State grad, so like you get a chance to go back and work for the alma mater. You do it. I was really good friends with Frank Beasley, so that was kind of my connection to Coach Pop. I was an alum and knew one of the assistants pretty well. And then Coach Pop's awesome about like he wants his coaches to want to be head coaches. Mm-hmm. So he started pushing me towards at least interviewing for some jobs. And he said, if something fits, take it. If it doesn't fit, stay. Got a head coaching opportunity at Buena Vista University in Storm Lake, Iowa, a little D3 school. And then I'm originally from just south of Pittsburgh, PA. Went to McGuffey High School. The high school is Jeremy Hunter. So when the Lake Erie job opened up, this is way closer to home.
Right.
A lot better of a fit for me on like the family side of things. So I took the Lake Erie job. We're going into partway into year 3 now. So and I had to stop at the National Wrestling Coaches Association using my actual degree in media relations at some point in there, somewhere in that moving around. So
cool. That's pretty cool. So what did you take away from Coach Pop down there? Any stories or anything you took away from him?
I got a lot of Coach Pop stories. But,
one that comes to mind.
I think the two biggest things that I think of is, one, just how uncompromising he was, and that's how we got to where we did down there so quickly. Like no or we can't was just never, ever, ever an acceptable answer. Okay. Even when he knew it wasn't really a realistic answer, like it just was not an acceptable answer. And that was honestly, like, that was really tough for me for a while. Like my first 6 months there, I'm like, this dude's going to fire me. Like literally every day. I'm going to get fired. Like, this is going to be awful. And we finally had a meeting probably about 6 months in. This is right before Christmas. And it was kind of one of those, like, we finally had like the man-to-man talk that we needed to have. And I'm like, what do you need from me? Mm-hmm. Just tell me what you need and I will do it. But we were just going so fast. He got the job in, I think, May. I got there in August. We had so many problems to fix. The program was a absolute mess at the time.
Okay.
We had never had time to really lay out expectations for each other. Like,
Okay.
You before 6 months in, you would have had that, but
you're like, okay, yeah.
We were just going too fast to even think about it. And from that point on, everything got so much better, both in how we got along, but how we did our jobs. And so that has always been like, I always fall back to that because it made me so much better working with him just because of how he pushed. But I also I'm so appreciative to how close I was to maybe screwing that up. And now, once we had that talk, I got it figured out. And it basically made a legitimate coaching career for me. I was awesome. Trying to be a coach before then. That made a legitimate coaching career for me. And then the other thing that probably sticks out, to me every day now, I get little reminders. When you're an assistant coach, you always think your boss is crazy and you do it this way or you do it that way, or why is he doing this? And I literally hear myself say stuff that came out of his mouth every day that I used to think was crazy. And now I'm like, oh God, I'm Pat. What happened? I sound just like him now. And so things just make sense when you're in the chair that has the most to deal with. That when I don't even know how old I was then, but in my 20s at NC State, I just didn't get it yet. And now I'm like, oh, he's actually kind of a genius, whether I thought he was or he wasn't. So
that's why he said that, right?
Yep.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I was super lucky when I was there too. I was on a staff with Frank Beasley, who's probably one of the best recruiters in the country, and legitimately I would consider one of my best friends.
Oh, cool.
And I was there with Jameel Kelly. So I got to learn how to kind of run an operation from Pat. I learned so much technique from Jameel, and I learned how to recruit and how to really grind at my job, but efficiently from Frank. Frank is super duper efficient, but works all the time, but gets twice as much done as probably most of the guys out there because he is so good at how he does it. So I kind of got the best of all worlds from that group. And then,
any secrets on how he's efficient? Any tips or anything? Yeah.
So it's not exciting, but get really freaking good at Excel. Get really freaking good at Microsoft Excel. And he had a good multitasking gene too, where he could be having a conversation, knocking stuff out on the computer at the same time. But it turned into this, he was a recruiting encyclopedia in his brain, and he could look you in the eyes at the same time and have a meaningful conversation where you felt like he was hearing you. I don't know if he was or not, but I felt like he was. Yeah. So.
Nice. Cool. So you and I think cross paths. I think it was your first day on the job or whatever it may be at Lake Erie College. Was that correct? You were right? Came back to Ohio.
If it wasn't the first day, it was the first week.
The first week. Sure. Right. You're traveling back to Ohio, right? And sleeping on Zeb's couch. So you found a place or something. What was how did it go?
So that's kind of the story. So we're moving across the country, my wife and I. My wife, I think, is 6 months pregnant at the time.
Right.
So
I forgot about that.
Letting me do this. She's living in Pennsylvania with my parents at the time because we hadn't closed on our house here yet. I'm living on Zeb's couch, and they were amazing hosts. But when you're living on someone's or really it was his guest bedroom, but I'm across the hallway from his kids. Right. I'm trying not to make noise at night. I was like, you know what? I need to meet people in Ohio. I'm really good friends with Coach Fretwell. He's doing a camp. I'm gonna just go hang out with Coach Fretwell for a day and go start meeting people. And that way I'm out of the Miller's hair. They were, again, they were completely awesome about it, but you feel bad being in somebody else's house when you're just crashing. So I'm like, I'm going to just start running around doing camps. I slept in the office a couple nights during that week.
Wow.
But that first week I was at camp with you. I was camped somewhere else in Ohio, and it was the weekend of U23s when they were in Akron.
Akron,
So
yeah.
that was basically what I did that whole week, was just try not to inconvenience Zeb, and get something done. I was like, I don't know anybody really in Ohio other than these couple of people. So like, let me go meet some people.
Nice. No, that's cool. Yeah, it was probably a whirlwind of a week, especially dealing, right? You weren't a parent at the time. So you're in someone's house that has little kids. Then you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step? Getting a house, starting a getting, Lake Erie College going. So, so, so touch on that. Year 3, you said, mentioned, what, where, at now, and how, kind of knew the Ohio landscape and how it's progressed and where you're at now. I guess talk about the program a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the program is in a really good place. Obviously, we can't talk specifics on recruits until another couple of weeks, but I think we have probably the best recruiting class we've had since I've gotten here coming in. I mean, we have some really highly ranked Ohio kids, and then we have several top 10 like pound for pound in their graduating class, Michigan guys. So I think we have a really, really, really good class coming in. And this
you got
is
a lot
kind
of
of the
Michigan
class.
guys. You got a lot of Michigan guys on
Yes.
roster right now, right?
Yeah. We have a nice connection,
Okay.
nice connection in Michigan as well. We've been working really hard in Ohio, and it's starting to finally come together, but our program already kind of had a Michigan connection when I got here. And so we've been heavy on that ever since. But this class that's coming in, it was kind of the one that we targeted year 1. Again, we didn't know a lot of people in Ohio. I mean, I knew names and I knew who I needed to know, but they didn't have a clue who I was. And so we kind of laid out like this 2021 recruiting class is the one that we really thought we would make our biggest jump with. And we honestly were probably a little ahead of the curve the first 2 years. We probably did a little better than I expected to.
Good.
But this class has kind of been the result of a lot of relationships we started trying to build, those first couple months when I was in town. They kind of know who I am. They've seen my name, they've seen my face. I've helped coach them at Fargo, things like that. It's all kind of coming together in this year. So really excited about that. And I mean, we had a really successful program that I got to inherit. Like, how lucky am I that we worked in the dregs when I got the job? I think had 5 national qualifiers the year before I got here. Like, we were a good program already. And I basically have gotten to take it and put my spin on it. And we're trying to, jump up to the next level. We're a top 10 team every year, and we challenge for team trophies every year. But we already had a really good product to start with. So it's that first year was actually really stressful because I knew we had some really good guys. And I think I probably undercoached a little bit because I didn't want to screw it up. They had Coach Hugenboom for 4 years before I got there, and we have some 5th-year seniors. I want to tweak stuff, but I don't want to change everything that they've ever known. And that balancing act of like trying to put your stamp on it, but also not mess up what they're already good at because they're good. And we had a heck of a dual meet team that year and a very heartbreaking regional. We lost 3 matches in the go-to match.
Ouch.
Or three guys in the go-to match qualified 1. And our region being what it is, those go-to matches we lost, all those guys All-American. Like, we were a couple seconds away from having 4 All-Americans, and instead we took 1 guy to national that first year.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a tough one, but it probably made you stronger, right? Focused on in the following year, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it showed me a lot of what we really did need in recruiting, both what we already were good at. And so it kind of set the bar, but also like what we were missing with that group.
So what makes it different? Obviously you're, eastern part of Ohio, smaller schools in Ohio, a lot of schools going on, obviously PA, your background there. What makes Lake Erie College different?
So I think one of the things that really makes us different is location. We have a little bit of everything around us. So like, not to knock any of the other, like especially the D3s, they're in Ohio, but like most of them are not really in a booming metropolis. And if that's what you want, that's fantastic. If that's what you're looking for, that's great. We happen to kind of have a mix of everything where we're in this small little town of Painesville, but we're 5 minutes from one of the biggest suburbs in the entire state with Mentor. So anything and everything you could ever want to do is 5 minutes away. We're 3 minutes from the lake. We're 3 minutes from the river. So if you want to be in the woods and be out in the country, you can be there. Oh, and we're still only like 35 minutes from downtown. So if you want to experience downtown, but not live in downtown, that's still all really available to you. And then I live 10 minutes the opposite way from campus, and I'm literally in the country.
Nice.
Little farm boy me, I can be in the country and still be really close to everything. So I think that's something that's pretty unique compared to a lot of small schools that are out there. We're not a school that, if you want a really big booming social scene on the campus, that's not us. If you want a good life around campus, we definitely fit that. And then I think a lot of the things that we do within our wrestling program is kind of what makes us different. And everyone thinks their way is the best. Like, no, otherwise they would be not doing it that way, right? We think our way is the best. I'm sure the other guys in our conference think their way is the best, but we just do a lot of things that I stole directly from my time at NC State that we do here that I don't think a lot of other people in the country are doing. Don't necessarily want to give all of those away.
Right.
But I think a lot of it is just we have our hands in a lot of pieces of kids' lives. Like, I help guys do class schedules today. Like, I've been doing it all week long. Like, and like, happily so. Like, and I'm not trying to take their advisor's place, but I want that second set of eyes to give them some perspective. So they go to their advisor meeting prepared. Their advisor appreciates that they came in prepared. Now we've had 2 conversations about what classes they need to be in before they actually schedule. It's a lot of little things like that where we just we wear a lot of hats.
Their workload better than their advisor, right? You know their workload. I mean, you're with them every, so.
Yep. And I mean, and we have the goal. I think a lot of times D2 gets the bad rap of not necessarily being like academic focused, where D3's the academic focused and D1's the athletic focused. And what is D2? No, we want to be top 10 in the country academically every year. And my goal is to get guys as many degrees as humanly possible before they get out of here, where maybe some other places take the 5-year plan to get your degree so that it works better for wrestling. I want all my guys to graduate in 3 years and get a master's degree in year 5. Nice. So that's kind of the approach that we're taking. Like, this is a unique opportunity you get to have some of your school paid for. Let's get as much schooling out of this as humanly possible. And we can still wrestle while we're doing that. I promise it'll be all right.
Yeah. What's the school known for? What programs academically?
I think our 2 biggest, and I'm probably going to have an academic advisor for another program called, I don't say their name, but I think business and bio are probably realistically our 2 biggest. I mean, we have a lot of criminal justice, a lot of education, but business, we have a 4+1 MBA. So I love when our guys want to do business. You got 5 years of college wrestling, get a master's degree in 5 years, 4+1 MBA, and then we have a lot of guys on the team that are trying to be physician's assistants, doctors, chiropractors, things like that. And we have a physician's assistant school right on our campus.
Oh, wow.
Now, you're probably not going to be able to wrestle while you're doing PA school, but you can come here, get your undergrad, and the physician's assistant school. And like 6 seats doesn't sound like a lot, but when there's only 30 people in the program each year, 6 seats is a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a very intense program. It's really tough, but you actually, like, you have a lot of bang for the buck on the back end if you see it through for our PA program. So those are probably the things we're the most known for.
Nice. No, that's awesome. One other thing I just heard about you guys. You guys have a twin scholarship. What's that about?
Yeah, so we do. We have we were founded. Our college was founded by twins.
Oh, really? Okay.
And at the time, kind of crazy, like it was founded by twin women, by twin sisters back in the 1800s. And so basically, if you're a twin and you want to come to Lake Erie and both twins are going to come, it's basically like a buy one, get one on tuition.
Wow.
So, I mean, you can look at it as you both get 50% tuition off, or one doesn't pay any tuition and the other pays all the tuition, whichever way you want to look at it. But yeah, they both get 50%. And that is, without any of the other financial aid that might come along. Like that's just a scholarship we give out, similar to like a merit scholarship for your grades. So it's actually the second highest scholarship we have. If you're a twin, you qualify for the second highest academic scholarship just because you're a twin.
That's crazy. That's wild. That's I've never heard of that till a little bit ago. So wow. We talked how we met through Fretwell. You have any Fretwell stories, or how you cross paths with him?
Oh man, I don't even remember how I originally crossed paths with Fretwell. I know I was probably one of the early adopters of their crazy parking lot like breakdowns with him and Roper and like the car spotlight doing those. But I think I just eventually, Cliff is really great about putting himself out there. And I think eventually I just saw enough stuff that I liked that I'm like, I'm gonna get to know this guy. And so I don't remember like where we first fully crossed paths, but like I know when we started to get really close, I was actually coaching in Iowa, and the Iowa recruiting scene is tough. There's a ton of schools there, and if you're not one of the top dogs already, it's tough to break through. So I started to go like I was trying to pluck kids from down in Georgia instead of staying home. I was like, Georgia's on the come up. Like, let's go get some of these guys that maybe are getting overlooked. And I started to build a really good relationship with Cliff then. And we just kind of, built things from there. Like our RTC now is the Compound Great Lakes Regional Training Center. Like that's, we have a connection in a lot of different ways now, but anytime he's in Ohio or PA, I try and take a day and just like go hang out with him. I always steal good stuff off of him. He's always got good techniques. So I can always steal something new off of him. And then man's always got some good stories to hear too. So.
Cool. Yeah, he does. He can talk. He's got real good stories. Always doing something. So, talk about the RTC. So that's your the Compound Great Lakes RTC.
Yeah. So one of a handful of D2s that actually runs an RTC. We're not at the same level, obviously, as like the Ohio RTC. We're not putting guys on the Olympic team yet, but I love freestyle and Greco. I like being involved with it. So it kind of allows me to do a little bit of both, where I can help some of the local kids in the area and help them chase Fargo titles in a way that I wouldn't be able to if we didn't have an RTC. It helps me, we might first kid we put on our world team might be actually a junior level kid or a cadet level kid from Ohio that's not even necessarily on my roster, but gotcha. He's in our RTC. And then the hope is over time, we are going to continue to build up our RTC, and we'll start putting guys on FILA or UW junior world teams and things like that. Where are these guys from? This little Lake Erie college school? Yeah. Like we can compete at that level. So, we had some guys close to breaking on the podium at U23s last year. And so we're planning on making the trip out to Omaha again and see what we can do out there. It's been a weird situation to try and train in, but it's been the same for everybody else too. So, I think we're all in the same boat when we get out there.
Right. That's weird, but we're in the same boat. So doing what we can do. Right. Talking about freestyle, you have any rule changes you'd make to folk style or freestyle?
Oh, geez.
or any unwritten rules of the sport that you have?
Yeah, so I mean, I actually have a lot of things I don't like about folk style rules. I'll try and not talk about every one of them, but I really do not like. I do not like. Some people call it a broomstick cutback. That should just be like illegal instantly. Whether I leave the ground, don't leave the ground. Like once you've left the ground, calling it illegal doesn't matter. My ACL's gone already anyway. What do you care if you gave up a point at that point? So I think that's a position that needs to you know, I don't know how you completely legislate it out of the sport because guys' legs end up crisscross sometimes, but like there's a clear like motion that's coming if you know you're going for that. And so I hate that position. I don't like a lot of the red shirt rules that are in the NCAA right now. I don't like how it's designed to put the least mature human being on your team and tell them to go travel on their own, pay for things on their own, figure it out on their own. Oh, and not get coached, by the way.
Right.
I don't like that.
At a moment, they need the
Um,
most direction, right? They need the most direction at that point in
yes,
their life.
yes. Yeah. So, I mean, we actually do some somewhat unique things with red shirts because of that. We don't blanket red shirt our freshmen because sometimes I feel like they actually don't get anything out of their red shirt year because they don't know anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the best opportunity to coach them anyway while they're in their red shirt year. So we don't always red shirt our freshmen. Sometimes we red shirt them later. But I'd love to change the red shirt rules. That's probably a whole other episode of like rabbit hole I could go down on what I want to change on that. But I'd love to see that changed. I don't like the hands of the face rule. No matter how they change it, it's never really been good. There was a problem with the one version of it, so they changed it, and now there's a whole new problem. And that's how most rules work. But if every time you change the rule, there's just a new problem, maybe it's just a bad rule.
Right. Yeah. Good point. That's a good point.
So yeah, I don't know. There's probably even some more on the deep dive, but those are ones that probably jump out really, really quickly to me that I don't like.
Okay. So you mentioned you're a farm boy, right? You're living on some land right now. So what do you like to do?
So yeah, I'm going to someday be on like a 200-acre farm. My parents have a lot of land. We grew up as like farm kids. Grew up on a dairy farm.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
we're not really a fully dairy farm anymore. My dad runs a greenhouse and does some different things off of the land, but like eventually that's where I'm going to end up. The plan is that's where I'll end up after I'm done coaching. So I just like having that much space. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it, but I have it to use if I want. It's certainly not going to be baling hay. I hate baling hay, but to ride quads around the farm or to go for a hike or whatever. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, and I honestly, I lead a pretty simple life. I do like to go hiking. I golf like twice a year. I like to golf, but I never make time to golf. Like I like to watch hockey. I'm a big hockey fan. I'll watch pretty much any sport, but like I really like hockey. And then I'm kind of even though I'm not doing my own podcast or anything right now, I'm kind of like a media geek. Like that's what I went to school for. So like I'll watch people's podcasts and just like, I wonder what technique they use to do that, or how did they chop that up? Like not even like entertainment of the podcast, but like I want to know how they did the production on it.
Right. No. And any favorites you have out there? Any favorite podcasts, wrestling or non-wrestling?
So I'm really all over the place with non-wrestling podcasts, but probably anything that Malcolm Gladwell does and like Pushkin Industries. There's a lot of really good podcasts there. Cautionary Tales has been a good one lately that I've really enjoyed. And Revisionist History is the one that kind of took me in that direction. I like Revisionist History a lot, but I don't know that I have like a wrestling podcast that jumps out for sure. I probably listen and follow too many of them to like, I probably should streamline that in my life a little bit and make a little bit more time for some other stuff.
Right.
And John Boy Media, anything John Boy Media is super entertaining right now too. Now I'm not a huge baseball guy, but I've become a bigger baseball guy just from listening to the like John Boy and Jake and like I am not a Yankees fan in the slightest, and I listen to Talking Yanks just because it's an entertaining show.
They're sucking you in slowly, right?
Yeah.
So Malcolm Gladwell, I'm assuming you read his books. Any favorite books?
Yeah. So my favorite is David and Goliath. Like hands down, no question. David and Goliath is my favorite. And I think in a lot of ways that I just gravitate to the message. For us, we're a small school. I'm trying to fight with giants every day. to build our program to the way we want. And then again, I grew up in a town that doesn't even have a stoplight, right?
Wow.
Like things that I've done in my life without, my hometown never having a stoplight. Like, so I just I gravitate to the message of that book, but I also think there's some really, really, really cool insight in there. Like I always kind of go back to there's a whole chapter on this girl, whether she would have become a doctor if she would have went to like Maryland instead of going to, I think it was Brown. Like if she would have been the smart kid in her class instead of the dumb kid with all the geniuses, like she was a genius. She was just the least smart genius in her class. She thought she was dumb, right? Like, so I just think that there's a lot to be gained from that, especially that chapter. I think it's really, really interesting. Like there's a lot of perspectives you could tackle things from, and it's not always the same way that everybody else does it.
Right. That's that's a good one. Yeah, that I remember that that part, because it's kind of like wrestling, right? You can be a big fish in a little pond, or vice versa. But you talked a little bit about your program, and you just talked about your perspective on that book and everything. How do you with the coaching staff and administration there, can you talk a little bit what you bring to the table, and then maybe your assistant coaches and things like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I firmly believe the only reason I have a head coaching job is because I did go to college and be a communications major, and I know how to write a newsletter, and I know how to be organized, and I know how to do a little bit of promotion and marketing. And like, I'm not a guru in any of it, but I can do a little bit of all of those things. I know a lot of wrestling techniques. So does pretty much anybody else that went through 4 years of college wrestling. Like everybody's pretty good at wrestling if you wrestled in college. I think the reason that I'm able to do what I do is because I'm better at a lot of the other outside stuff outside of the wrestling room than a lot of people. And so I kind of hire my staff a little bit differently sometimes. Like we have some great people on staff that are just strictly wrestling people, and that's what they do. But I hired a graduate assistant this year because I wanted our social media to be better. He knew how to wrestle. It's not like I hired a dude that could only make good graphics for us, but I wanted social media to be better. I think we have something pretty cool that's going to happen over the next couple of years, and I want somebody to document it well.
Right.
And so he was able to bring both of those to the table. Maybe isn't the best technician in the world, and maybe isn't the best workout partner we could ever get, but he's very good. He was a great wrestler, top 10 in wins at our college. He's a good college wrestler, and he's really good at social media, like things like that. I hired my new GA this year. Coach Heinel wrestled for my dad. So I know he knows a little bit about how I think because he lived through 4 years of college with my dad. And he's really, really smart. Like I tend to hire how bright you can be within the program, not necessarily just how good at wrestling can you be. At some point as a coach, you have to stop being a workout partner. And so I want guys that can probably do a little bit more of that right out of the gate, opposed to just, hey, I hired them because they're a great workout partner. But we have some guys that are around the program that are there for that reason as well too. They're just good coaches and good wrestlers. So
nice.
I'm pretty fortunate between coaches, between assistants that the college gives me, and volunteer that we do some fundraising for. We usually have a staff of somewhere between like 5 and 7 guys every year, which is pretty unique for a small program like us.
Yeah, for sure. So your dad coaches in college, or?
My dad is now a college coach. He spent probably 30 plus years as like a youth, junior high, and high school coach.
Okay.
He was my junior high coach at McGuffey High School. And he actually got to coach me in high school one season as well.
Cool.
But now he's a D3 assistant at Washington Jefferson College, which is about 10 minutes from where I grew up. So.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we had a real unique experience. My first year here, where about an hour apart, my uncle qualified a guy for the state finals. My dad qualified a guy for nationals, and I qualified a guy for nationals, like within like an hour.
Wow, that's
so
pretty cool.
Very much a a wrestling family. So
Wow, I bet that was quite the conversation. Calling each other and living on cloud
I
nine
was
at
the
that
last
moment, right?
one in. I was sweating it out
Yeah.
so hard because
Oh,
they had already, my dad put his guy in the regional finals. We had a guy in the wrestlebacks trying to get through. And my uncle texted me. He's like, "Hey, we got a guy in the finals." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I can't be the guy that doesn't get this done right now."
Hey, you got it done. That's all that matters, right? That's cool. So do
So
you and your dad then coach, like share coaching strategies then, since you're both coaching at the college level?
So we do a little bit, but I think more we honestly kind of vent to each other. Like I know I have somebody that understands the struggles when it's going good, when it's going bad. And like, so I have perspective by talking to him. And then I have a whole different perspective when I talk to my wife, because she actually gives me some real life perspective. My dad gives me wrestling perspective.
No,
But
it's a good combo, right?
but we're so very different in how we coach also. He just has old school approach, I guess, because he's just been doing it for such a long time. It's not even old school. It's just, he came up with a different approach. And I think he was just a great wrestling coach. I am definitely a better like program guider and leader and
Gotcha.
manager of things. So some of the things that I really understand, he's never even really had to mess with a whole lot. He either had it already kind of built for him at the high school level, or someone else is handling it for him now at the college level. So we don't always talk about like the program and how that works, but it's more like, "Hey, how's this guy doing?" Like, ironically, we recruit against each other a
Right.
decent amount. So like if a guy chooses his school or chooses my school, then we talk about how they're doing. And then just, the typical stuff, you complain about referees to each other. You talk about how, so-and-so needs to train a little bit better. They don't quite get it. But I think when I was an athlete, it was great having him, like, especially when I was in college. I could call home and I could call and vent to my dad, but I also had a coach to call and vent to. So he could give me both sides of the
Right.
fence when I was upset about something. Like, "Yeah, I see your point, but if I was coaching you, do you see why I would want this, this, or this?" "Oh, all right. Yeah, all right. That makes a lot more sense."
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool to have your dad. And I'm sure, yeah, it gets pretty tense if you're recruiting the same kid. I had Josh Moore on, a few episodes ago, and he talked about, coaching against and talk with his brother and, some of the things they have going on, PA and, Northeast Ohio. So, yeah, it makes it fun, but I'm sure it creates a different dynamic at times, right?
It does for sure. We try and
Yeah.
just not talk too much about those things when
Yeah.
they're happening. And so far it's worked out really good for both of us. The kid always seemed to have picked probably the right school.
Yeah.
Like it's gone well wherever they went. So they made the right choices, it turns out.
Cool. You have any coaching or like business heroes that you've kind of learned from? And
Um,
besides, Coach Pop and things like that, but any kind of maybe not learn from or look up to and how they run a business or a program?
yeah, so there's, and this is funny, I know this name's been mentioned a couple of times. But I coached a guy, and actually a set of brothers, Chad and Chandler Pike, when I
Okay.
was at NC State. And their dad, Charles, is a genius to me. Like,
Okay.
I took so much from him. He also helped out the program quite a bit when we were first getting started at NC State, and like helping us actually run the program like an organized business instead of just a bunch of savages trying to be good at wrestling. Um, and so, he's got these little thoughts about like, work on the business, not work in the business. And
Mm-hmm.
he's also, he's like a strong Christian man. And so like, he's a good guy to just call, like, and I don't call and talk to him a lot, but when I call and talk to him, I know I'm going to get like this pearl of wisdom from him. And I'm probably going to get challenged in some way every time I talk to him. So Charles Pike, definitely. And then Scott Greene is somebody that I have a ton of respect for. Again, I just think he's really, really smart and brings a unique perspective to things. I mean, yeah, he's at Wyoming Seminary, and yeah, his team's crushing it and they're doing great at the prep level and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I knew Scott a little bit when he was coaching at Binghamton because he was on staff with Coach Pop. And then I got to know him really well when I was on staff with Coach Pop at NC State. And like, Scott is just a really, really bright guy. And, you know, he brings an English teacher mentality into wrestling, which like
You don't always see that,
it
right?
gives you something different, right?
Right.
So like I reach out to Scott a lot when I'm like, all right, this thing makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, what is this administration trying to do with this? Or what is this thing that's happening in the world? I reach out to Scott, and he almost without fail has the answer. He'll tell you if he doesn't have the answer, but he usually understands everything at least one layer deeper than I do. So nice. I like to reach out to Scott.
Yeah, I like his takes on Twitter. Definitely, like you said, kind of brings that perspective that's, you know, not traditional. It's pretty deep, and, you know, it makes you think a little bit.
He's good for some dad jokes if you can read between the lines too. Like he had a whole Facebook post that was the TLC Waterfalls song, but it was all with like SAT words in place of the actual lyrics. So
cool.
He's got some like deep level dad jokes in there too.
Yeah, it's tough to do, right? Tough to have good ones, right? Cool. So you have anything else for us today? You got anything else you want to share or talk or ask? Or
man, I don't think so. I mean, I appreciate you having me on and getting a chance to talk. You know, always happy to jump on and tell wrestling stories anytime. So, but no, just really, really appreciate it. And hopefully, hopefully some of the things I bragged about with the program today starts to, it's not something that I'm bragging about. It's just something that happens here in the really near future.
No, that's that. You guys have some great things going on. You know, like I said, I'm glad we've crossed paths a couple of times. I see you out there, right, grinding. Right, I saw the district tournament this year up at the Division III district tournament. So I know you're out there, and when you're doing that, good things come, right? So I can't wait to see what you guys got going on. So thanks for your time, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
If you like the show, subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast channels. If you didn't, shoot us a DM and let us know who you'd like to hear from.